Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay. Never comes again, another day like yesterday. Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.
All right, guys, I've got one for you today, and there is a certain amount of complexity, connection to historical trends, et cetera, so there's a lot of information, but there's a simple, unavoidable truth. And the same as when I'm working with clients, I always enjoy it when complex things can result in simple, controllable, actionable behaviors and directions, because so often the really complex things, political realities, et cetera, there's not much you can do about it. People can tell you that voting is, but a lot of times, no, you're not going to change anything. Big business is going to change stuff, but you're not. So I'm excited about this one, and I want to be really, really clear at the outset. This is not a diatribe or indictment of medical doctors. This is not a diatribe or an indictment of psychiatrists who are medical doctors who specialize in psychiatric medicine. This is an indictment of a system that used to work for historical reasons and has not worked for decades and really, really doesn't work. And I'm talking about the traditional medical model, which is entirely captured by Big Pharma. It's entirely captured by people's desire to believe that complex problems can be solved with a one-off chemical that they can afford to purchase from an industry that makes billions of dollars off of lying to you about how complex it is and how effective or ineffective their drugs actually are. I'm talking about a medical model that isolates doctors from a larger, more complex view of what it is they're dealing with. And I'm talking about a medical system that has been entirely captured by a for-profit industry, the insurance industry. It has been captured for a long time, and everyone knows what's wrong with this. Everyone knows that it's entire bullshit for some employee or some branch of the insurance industry to say, you can have this test, you can't have that test. So let me come to the point. I have been exceptionally healthy for the entirety of my life. I hardly went to a doctor ever through all of my 20s and 30s. I didn't get sick a lot. I had few injuries. I've broken a couple bones. Mountain biking, I healed really quickly. I was back out there exercising, running, mountain biking very quickly because I was in really great shape. Metabolically, I've always seemed to be in excellent health. And then, I hit 45, 50. Really, when I hit 50, some good things happened that had unintended consequences. One, my nervous system calmed down. I'd always been super hyper and real active and was always in motion. I had a friend in college who they used to give me a ride to my apartment, and she asked me, she was like, how come you always run everywhere? I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, every time we let you out of the car, you run between the car and your apartment. I didn't even think about it. I realized that was true. I never even walked quickly between one point and the other. I always ran. It's because it felt good to be in motion, always. I always took stairs 2 at a time. I always ran upstairs, ran downstairs, ran from point A to point B for no reason other than it felt good to my body. But that presented problems, a nervous system running hot, a tendency towards anxiety, depression, right? If you're always running hot, your nervous system crashes into depressions, exhaustion. So I always had this problem of trying to balance this high energy level. And a lot of that went away as with age, my T levels dropped a bit. I felt less excitement, less aggression going to the gym and just really wanting to like get a really intense workout, always pushing really hard. And that was really nice. It made me a kinder, more understanding person. It made me a more relaxed person. It made me an easier person to be around. It made it easier for me to be around me. But suddenly these things started popping up. Fatigue. Over the past 2 or 3 years, I've started having weird cramps. I'll just be sitting there and just get a really bad cramp in my foot or in my back, along my lats. Just to turn and tighten the muscle, it'll suddenly cramp up, and I have to relax and breathe and take 2 or 3 minutes and let it pass. Hamstrings, have always gotten really bad cramping. Most of that due to dehydration and lack of adequate electrolytes. And dizziness sometimes, just sort of like standing there and just get a huge head rush and dizziness. It actually feels good, but sometimes I almost fall down. Fainted a couple times coming out of the sauna. Like that happens to some people. You have to be careful. Fainted once when I was fast. Right, so there's nothing really serious, and in general, then following us losing our house to the wildfires and having a super intense year where sometimes I literally thought I was having a heart attack. My chest was burning and tight and I felt stabbing pains. It was really just stress and emotional reaction. My heart stopped being as strong and it was really weird. And take note of this, you guys. For the first time in quite some time, I got COVID about 4 or 5 months ago, like went down hard 2 days straight on a camping trip. Came back from it, but then low-key kind of had a weird long COVID for 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months, where my heart rate variability, which is a big indicator of your heart health and your health in general, mine is always solid as hell, just great heart rate variability. Down the tubes, no variability, in the red, as reported by my wearable. The second thing that happened is I'd always been in such good cardiovascular health that even when I did high intensity interval training and I would just sprint at 12 or 13 pace on the treadmill, sprint for a minute straight or a minute 15 seconds as fast as I could, and my lungs would be burning and I would be heaving and my fingers would be vibrating with carbon dioxide balance and like literally I can't go anymore, I would have difficulty getting my heart to spike above 155. Now this is an amazing health, right? That's amazing. Like if I'm in my 50s and I'm doing high intensity interval training and I can't get my heart to spike above 155, that means I'm in amazing health. And when I'm at resting heart rate, I have a great resting heart rate, blah, blah, blah. But following that COVID experience, I would be riding my e-bike, so not even a regular bike, my e-commuter bike, on the flats to or from work. And suddenly, without even feeling anything, my heart rate would spike to 180, 190, 200, and then fall again. So clearly this had some relationship to the COVID vaccine, and a doctor told me that in addition I'd gotten vaccinated, and that creates spike proteins, and some people have difficulty clearing spike proteins. So then getting COVID again on top of having had the 2 COVID vaccines plus a booster was probably related to something with spike proteins not being cleared from my body adequately and my heart struggling with whatever this was. I was scared for 2 reasons. One, I have an uncle who's dying of a rare autoimmune disease that he said started with noticing weird cramping. So I was worried there because autoimmune is just like a huge thing on my mother's side of the family, and my father was dying of dementia before he died of cancer. So there's these things in our history. So I was worried, and I've been looking for some alternative to standard medicine because it doesn't seem to ever actually address anything. And I'll give you for example. I've had some good doctors. Again, this is not an indictment of doctors. But for example, I've always had painful joints, painful stiff joints. And in my late 40s, early 50s, the inflammation in my right shoulder started getting so bad that it was impacting sleep. I would lay down to sleep and it would ache and burn so badly that I couldn't sleep. It felt weak. And I would go into the doctor and tell him, hey, I'm having this issue. It's like, oh, you know, tendonitis, whatever, you should. And they, you know, if they were paying attention to holistic shit at all, they might say, hey, try to stay away from tomatoes and stuff like that. The nightshade family. So they would sort of like tell you, hey, you should probably do this or that. And one doctor was like, look, you know, you're getting older, you're going to be fine. And he stuck a needle in there and gave me a cortisone shot. And it felt great for a week or two. Like the pain completely went away, and then it slowly comes back. Right? So you see this issue that I'm already addressing, that I'm already talking about. Whatever that model is, for whatever reason, it addresses fuck all. And again, I'm not mad at doctors. This has been a historical evolution that all of us have to address and respond to. And doctors trained for 10 years minimum to be where they are. They're not going to be the first people, you know, when they're making 100, 200,000 a year, 500,000 a year. Some make as low as 60 or 70, but they're working in county clinics, whatever. They're not going to be like, let's change this whole industry. Some of them are. But they address fuck all. Okay? Let me give you with this specific example. So then I went and paid a nutritionist, you know, $250 for a consult and $75 here and there for a follow-up. And she put me on glutathione, which is a big antioxidant, and told me stop getting up. And she asked me, like, what do you do? What do you drink? What do you eat? And then actually gave me a plan. It was like, don't get up and just drink your coffee. You need to get up, drink a full glass of water to cleanse your liver, to reduce inflammation, because fat in your liver can contribute to systemic inflammation, right? There's all of this stuff. I'm not even going to go into it. Otherwise, I could spend weeks just telling you just what I've learned from having to geek out on shit, because the medical industry does fuck all for this shit. Nothing. There's no training. There's no knowledge. Nothing. The primary causes of most of what you experience, medical doctors are trained to do fuck all, nothing with it. And I'm fucking pissed. Okay, and I'll tell you why I'm pissed. Okay, so come back to this thing. This doctor gives me a cortisol shot. And yeah, it helped for 2 weeks, and then it's back to the same thing. I hire a nutritionist, and she's like, stop popping up and pouring coffee in. Like you say you're having dizzy spells, whatever. First, hydrate, wait at least 20 minutes, let your body cleanse, you know, whatever, before you have your coffee. She put me on glutathione. And from, I think it's Andrew Huberman, whatever, it's some health podcaster, swears by hydrogen water, H2O tabs, as a serious antioxidant. I made a practice of those two things. And guys, the burning and discomfort that I had experienced increasingly starting in my mid-30s, and the stiffness and discomfort. Now, I've always had a real problem with severely limited joint. Like, I don't stretch enough, but I'm also, for whatever reason, my joints are not flexible. I'm not a flexible person, especially my hamstrings. But I'm telling you, with the introduction of drinking water in the morning, glutathione, and hydrogen water twice a day, completely eliminated. I've been to a fucking doctor multiple times in my life with muscle spasms, burning, discomfort. Oh, I'm starting to get this ache in my finger. What should I do? Well, you know, take a look at maybe eliminate the nightshades, but you're aging. Shut the fuck up, man. You guys need to understand that you don't address shit. You're just there to pick up the pieces once the fucking levee is broken, man. That's just one example. No, I'm not even fucking done. Completely eliminated. Can I tell that there's probably a little bit of minor damage in my shoulder? Yeah. I couldn't do this without intense pain for years. Now, nothing. I still need to be careful. My joints are a little janky, but all the burning and all the aching that was keeping me up for like almost a decade, gone, completely gone, completely gone. And it was a nutritionist who charged me like $250 for an initial consult and maybe $75 here or there for 2 or 3 follow-ups. And solved the problem that for something that insurance probably paid $350 a pop plus something else, and I was paying sometimes $150 or $60 for my copay for multiple times over decades, did not a fucking thing other than stick a needle in there and make the pain go away for 2 weeks. And that guy was actually a good doctor who was actually trying within the system. The guy who did that was a good doctor who would have conversations with me about nutrition and actually recommended a book for me called The China Study and said, read that book, and that helped. He was a good guy who, when you go in for your labs and you're 40 or 50, you know, he's like, look, I won't do this, the standard 30 measures or markers that they, like, I know it costs you extra, but he would ramp it up to like 50 or 60 markers to make sure. He was a good guy. He was one of the best in the industry, and he wasn't doing or couldn't do shit about this thing that was solved by me taking glutathione, drinking water in the morning, and drinking hydrogen water. Now, I don't know. Glutathione has more solid background. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if the hydrogen water is bullshit. It just happened to correlate because I did both of them at the same time. I don't give a shit. There's no downside, so I'm doing it. But what I'm saying to you is a nutritionist solved a lifelong fucking problem for something that cost me $350 that multiple $350 visits to people who have trained for 10 years minimum to just become who they are, couldn't do a fucking thing over 20 or 30 years. Nothing. Don't even know what to ask. They don't ask. They probably know what to ask, but they don't ask. This is insanity. This is just stupidity. This is asininity. Okay, I haven't even come to, I'm not going to sit here and put all my medical bullshit and blah, blah, blah. Right? But that's just one example of going to a doctor, any doctor, and one of them was a very good doctor who I would have continued to go seeing if my insurance hadn't changed and I moved and like blah, blah, woof, woof, who was a good guy who spent far more time with me. He would spend half an hour with me talking, asking questions, is there anything else, and would talk to me. He understood what the medical model was doing, and he was attempting to push back. See, this is why I'm not indicting doctors, although some of you people are full of shit. Right? A nutritionist who trained for 2 or 3 years and probably had lots of experience just investigating and reading studies and, you know, blah, 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 solved that problem for me permanently. And that could have been doing permanent damage to my tissues, because the longer you allow inflammation to set up, at some point it actually begins to create structural damage. The medical model would have just told me, I'm old. You're getting old. Well, you're getting old. You know, maybe do some, you know, physical therapy, and here, take a cortisol shot. But, you know, you're aging. That's what they would have told me. And they're dangerously fucking wrong. They're dangerously wrong. if they weren't captured by insurance and big pharma who just wants to fucking sell you drugs because it's a fast way to make a shitload of money, it would be criminal negligence and they should have their licenses pulled. But we all understand that they're in an entire industry worth hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars, driven by big pharma and insurance. Like, I'm not mad at them. I understand. This is a historical problem and a need for a historical shift. But I'm pissed because as an individual, it's fucking stupid. It's stupid. And I'm not knocking the nutritionist. That's highly valuable. But what I'm saying, how the fuck is it that a doctor doesn't address that? How the fuck is it that the medical system isn't addressing that? That the only thing the medical system does is go, look, we're not going to address optimal health. We're not going to address even when you're progressing into conditions that over the long term create very serious illnesses. We're going to wait until the system fucking breaks. And then insurance, you evil motherfuckers, are going to go, okay, well, we're willing to pay for that. Now that you have full-blown fucking diabetes, we'll pay for that. Now that your chronic autoimmune inflammation and systemic inflammation has resulted in dementia, we'll cover that. Now that you've had a severe heart event and your heart is damaged, maybe permanently, we'll cover that. Fuck you, you evil assholes. Okay. I'm me. This is my podcast. I cuss at people. And a lot of times when I'm in a quiet place, that's not really how I feel. But fuck you, you evil assholes. But let's come back. Following that experience with the nutritionist, I've sort of sussed out, it's like there's no point in going to an MD. Look, the traditional Western model is really good for mechanical things. I had a condition I won't share because it's quite personal, but it created a permanent problem that made a situation not functional. It was not life-threatening. It wasn't like I was worried, but it became a situation non-threatening, and it required surgery because it was mechanical. It created a mechanical problem. And I had a great surgeon. They went in, they cut me. I hate that shit, but they went in, they cut me, and it solved the problem. Permanently solved it. Fucking great. That's great. Okay, great. That's what is good. Mechanical problems. The traditional model is great. Brilliant people, amazing people. Okay? Because of some pretty seriously negligent shit on the part of my parents, but also because I was not super careful with myself and several, let's just put it this way, across 4 experiences I've had this eardrum, because my tendency is to tuck and roll sideways, this eardrum popped by water slapping it super, super hard, has been popped multiple times. At some point, it had scar tissue, so then even just getting on a plane and the pressure differential, if I had a cold or something, it would pop. Like literally a hole would pop in it, and I could hear air go, and it would hurt like a motherfucker. I'm a musician. There was scar tissue on it. It was killing my ability to hear low-end spectrum, whatever. I went and had a surgery. They cut me above the ear and took tissue, responsive tissue from under the surface of the skin, and they patched it. And it was amazing. They tested my hearing scientifically. My hearing significantly improved in that left side. I was continuing to play. I was in engineering and producing after that, successfully getting stuff placed. Well, what the fucking amazing, right? I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that that's a thing that exists. My son had severe adenoid issues, so severe especially after the fire, that he had such severe sleep apnea that he would stop breathing and struggle and fight to get air and then sit up in terror and fall out of bed and hit the ground and stand up in the middle of the night sobbing in fear. We took him, we found the best surgeon we could, and they shaved down his adenoids and his tonsils, and fucking night and day. He sleeps all night. He's happy. He's less emotionally touchy. Like, amazing. That's what it's for. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. But when it comes to metabolic health, you guys know fuck all. You don't know what the fuck to do. You don't know what you're seeing. You are captured by Big Pharma, who's just going to tell you to give them this drug or that drug that addresses some tiny thing in an incredibly complex system that you were not trained on, and you don't fucking know what to do. And we suffer and die of it. And we're fucking sick of it. I suffered with chronic pain for decades. And in 3 months, a nutritionist said, stop doing this, do this, do this. This is your plan. Eat this food, take this. And it's been gone ever since. That pain is fucking eliminated. You see what I'm doing right now? I couldn't do that. I couldn't hold my arms out. It was painful. It was stabbing, burning pains. I lived with that since it was beginning at a very mild level, and my hips in middle school. I lived with pain my entire life. Not my entire life, by definition. But a third of my life, half of my life. And then in a couple of months, a nutritionist who I paid, I think, $250 to for consultation eliminated it. Where I went to doctors multiple times. It was just like, here, take this. I forget what the fuck you take, some NSAID at super high prescription levels to reduce the inflammation mechanically, to manipulate it. But it's this thing that's really bad for you. You can't be on that, right? I had a metabolic fucking problem. And the medical industry didn't know shit and couldn't do anything about it. And it's also something that results in the autoimmune diseases that my family experiences, that my grandmother died of, my uncle is dying of, that my dad died of, right? You know, adult onset, like dementia, is an autoimmune disease. My mother has fibromyalgia. The entire family suffers of autoimmune, of inflammation, metabolic issues. And the medical industry knows shit about it. Nothing. They don't know what the fuck to do. I'm pissed. This is so fucking stupid. This is the dumbest situation. Okay, so continuing. So I had that experience, and I started doing tons of deep dives. Okay, I'm sort of a mad scientist anyway, so I'm one of those biohackers. I ended up being one. I don't have the mentality, but I ended up being one because I suffered for most of my life. And I solved severe PTSD in my late 30s, early 40s. So I had not really lived. So suddenly I was just like biohacking and doing all of this stuff. Now I'm alive. Now I'm living. How do I maximize? How do I optimize? And then I had kids at 50. So I need to stay viable and present through my 80s. I need to have my mind. I also need to have my body. I also need to earn through my 70s. And okay, so I became very inspired once I resolved PTSD, which is an autoimmune disease. It's chronic inflammation. It may have extreme psychological underpinnings, but it becomes a medical condition that is chronic, that is self-reinforcing. And doctors also don't know shit about that. That's fine. I'm a therapist. Send them to me. But doctors, you need to understand that all the autoimmune shit, like, it's only now showing up in the data, and in the medical industry, people are barely beginning to talk about what I've been screaming about for a decade solid, which is childhood abuse results in autoimmune issues and medical issues. It's a clear correlation. It becomes a metabolic problem. When parents abuse children, it creates metabolic imbalances that result in autoimmune issues. Abusing a child, even just verbally, creates metabolic imbalances. The organism responds and adapts in a way that intensifies certain metabolic processes and suppresses other metabolic processes that unbalances that child. And if you chronically stress them out and abuse them, that becomes internalized and the system locks into that way, and those people die younger than others. Child abuse fucking kills your kids young. Child abuse kills your kids young if they don't get help and if they don't have the information. Which is why all the people who are like, yeah, don't blame the parents. Oh my God, people have, you know what, just turn into Brazilians, blah, blah. There are some people who had such bad childhoods, they're dying of what it did to their body, no matter how positive they are. So shut the fuck up. All you dipshits who think you know, who think, oh, the country's just become so whiny about... No, we're trying to address something that we understand, that we can see, and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Medium to severe verbal or physical abuse, sexual abuse, or all of it, or a severely hard childhood results in chronic inflammation, which is a metabolic problem, which creates health issues for those folks, and they die younger of it. So all you people who have a problem with people talking about their parents and what they experience, you can shut the fuck up. It's in the data. It's hard science now. We don't want to hear your philosophical, political bullshit because it upsets you when people talk about things that are issues that need to be addressed. Okay, let's come back to it. I continued on this path, biohacking. Some of the things I did didn't seem to work. I couldn't tell, can't suss it out if I can't feel the difference. Once I had my kids, slipped back into severe sleep deprivation, exhaustion, struggling. Both my wife and I work, so we were just constantly juggling, trying to be good parents, getting up anytime. We didn't do the cry it out method. It's bullshit, by the way. The fact that your child learns to contain their high cortisol levels and fall asleep isn't good. The fact that your child learns to contain their high cortisol levels, which is a metabolic issue, and fall asleep isn't good. It doesn't mean you succeeded. I don't blame you. You're being raised, you're in a society that was built for consumerism and for constant expansion. It was not built for healthy parenting. So if you have to do it, I'm not judging you, but I'm telling you, if people lied to you that the cried out method is okay, it's bullshit. This was already tested decades ago with children who they tested by separating them from their parents and stressing them out. And there are children who will go quiet and just play with their toys in the corner, but when they took their saliva, they had high cortisol levels. So all that happened is they gave up on their and they internalized their distress. They're still distressed, and children can learn to fall asleep, but they have high cortisol levels, and it's going to hurt them. The cried out method is bullshit. If you have to do it, okay. I give my kids sugar sometimes. That's a terrible thing to do. I let my kids watch TV. That's not healthy. I know. I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you, don't let them lie to you about what this shit is. Okay, so I continued on this path. And I could see that for the most part, doctors couldn't address anything that I needed addressed. And so I'm trying to sleep, I'm biohacking. I started having real memory problems, likely from stress and cortisol. The memory problems increased once we lost our home, but it's probably stress, it's probably cortisol. If you don't know, cortisol suppresses short-term memory and also the ability to make long-term memories. And so it's well, that's probably what it is, but my dad was dying of dementia, so I'm worried, right? But I've sussed out medical doctors can't Nothing. You can take your time. You can sit in the goddamn waiting room for 45 minutes. Then they move you into your actual waiting room, and then you sit in there for another 15 to 20, right? The nurse comes in during that time and takes some blood and blood pressure, takes a history bullshit. And then the doctor finally comes in and talks to you for 10 minutes. It's like, look, you should probably do this, and gives you a prescription so that Big Pharma can make their fucking money. And the doctor bills the insurance. And nobody does a goddamn thing that's going to address anything. So I've assessed this. So I've sussed the situation out. So I kept biohacking. I found that lion's mane, along with MCT oil and vitamin B12, helps me a lot. Oh man, it rescued me when I was losing sleep and getting to the point that sometimes I would forget what I was saying literally in the middle of a sentence replying to a client. Or I need to hold their entire history in my head, because stressed clients and traumatized clients have cortisol, and they sometimes forget what they've said, or they forget what their narrative, they forget what they've, right? And so sometimes it's just my job just to remember what they don't remember. And to say, well, it makes sense that you felt this way because you remember you told me about this experience that you had where you were badly traumatized in middle school from being bullied. So I'm just bringing that up. Is that maybe related? I need to remember. And I was having issues. So I biohacked and discovered that vitamin B12, MCT oil, and lion's mane did wonders. So I'm biohacking, and I've completely just gone like, fuck the medical industry. Other than vasectomy. Oh my God, amazing, amazing. The same surgeon who solved one problem for me also gave me it's fucking awesome, dude. Thank you so much. I mean it. Thank you. That's what Western medicine is good at. Cutting you, putting pins in your bones. When I broke my femur, the break was too high for them to put a cast. So a really talented surgeon cut me, and she put 3 pins in my left femur. Thank you. Thank you so fucking much. Thank you. I mean it. Thank you. That's what Western medicine is good at. As I said before, metabolically, they know fuck all, and they can't do anything about it. They don't have time to take your history. They don't have time to really figure it out, and they don't take the time to go try these do these supplements. They don't have time to research and go, these are safe. Because the supplement industry is the wild fucking west. It's not regulated, so you have to be really careful about where you get your supplements, because they'll say it's this, whatever. So I'm sussing this out. Like, the medical community doesn't have a lot for me when it comes to maintenance, optimizing, or even addressing serious metabolic problems. I got into sauna, amazing data. I got into cold plunging, amazing data. And it helps me. It's amazing. For reducing inflammation, it's fucking amazing. High intensity interval training is really good for us folks over 40, over 50, because long-term cardio actually creates inflammation that our bodies are less capable of dealing with, right? So I was getting deep into the stuff, but also sussing out, I don't have time, and I'm not officially a scientist, and I'm not a doctor. So I'm figuring out a lot of shit that doctors haven't figured out. As a therapist, I figured out long before the medical industry did that there is a clear correlation between childhood abuse and autoimmune diseases. And I've been talking to my clients about that unofficially, because I'm not a doctor, but it's like, look, you need to understand this is a real thing. You need to address, and I send them to a doctor. You need to address inflammation, or a nutritionist. You need to address inflammation. You need an anti-inflammatory diet, et cetera, because for folks with anxiety, depression, chronic PTSD, you are in a state of chronic inflammation and autoimmune overactivation. That's what it is. It is a medical condition in addition to a psychological or a spiritual condition. That's what I love about it being a therapist. I get to address all of that. So I was deep into this, and then, like I told you, following the fire, I just got exhausted. First, there was a sprint for 6 months, moved 4 or 5 times, filling out paperwork after paperwork. We're arguing with the car insurance company, this, that, like just minor crisis after minor crisis, applying for loans, getting help from the community. It was fucking wild. And then once it was over, all of a sudden I got so tired, I could sleep at any time. Sleep at lunch, sleep at night, sleep in the morning, sleep, instantly fall asleep, sleep all night. And it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But also, I lost all drive and motivation to go to the gym. Started getting weak. My heart's not feeling good. Then I had the COVID thing where my heart rate variability really blew up, and I was having spikes in heart rate. By the way, that's very slowly, since that COVID episode, has very slowly normalized again, which is good news. So it's probably about spike proteins. And I've been playing with this new model, which is the new model of the future. So all my cussing and anger aside, and all my insulting people, whatever, take it, toss it out. This is the point, guys. That old model is good for surgery or for mechanical solutions. They're not even right about cholesterol. They're not right about cholesterol. The medical community is not correct about cholesterol. They don't even test for the cholesterol that's dangerous to you, and they don't even tell you, right? It's not about having an elevated number. It is about the kind of cortisol and whether it's being carried in small particles or large fluffy particles. The large fluffy particles take cholesterol up to your brain, and your brain needs cholesterol. Cholesterol is very important. And the small particles that are carrying cholesterol, sorry guys, I have to see what the heck this was. The very small ones can slip into the lining of your arteries and create inflammation. Okay? The doctors don't even test for those markers that tell you what size the particles are that are they don't test for that because insurance doesn't pay for it. Maybe some do, but all they do is go, oh, you have elevated cholesterol, stop eating the steak and stay away from this and that and eat some more fruits and vegetables. Come on, man. It's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing. Okay. So there's this new medical model. It almost always involves a doctor, but they're more holistic, they're more cross-discipline, which is a big issue with the medical model because each doctor is in their own silo. This is what goes wrong with feet, this is what goes wrong with the kidney, this is what goes wrong with eyes, but they have no cross-discipline understanding or holistic understanding, right? So they have a doctor who has cross-discipline intelligence and brilliance. They're now using AI, which can scour metadata and all the data that exists and generate some pretty reliable information. But what they're doing, and this is the new model, and believe me, it's over for the traditional medical industry. It's fucking over. It's over, man. If you're a doctor, start this new model. Just do it. You better do it now. Don't wait for it to collapse. Do it now. The new model is, at the beginning, there's this big expense because insurance won't do it. Fuck you, you assholes. It's even in your own benefit. It would benefit the insurance industry to do this. It would benefit them to fucking cover this. Stop being idiots. You start with your genetic test and you do 100 labs, 150 markers. I went deep into autoimmune and inflammation. and anything to do with the brain, blah, blah, blah. But you're doing 3 times what insurance will pay for when you go for your annual test. You're 40 or 50 years old, and you go for your annual test, what your insurance is willing to cover. You're doing 3 times the number of markers. And here's the big one, you guys. I had some experiences. So I've been playing with this model. I've checked out a couple of things. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But I paid $1,000 to do a deep dive with one, and it's the Wild West, and they were full of shit. They had a doctor who was super tired, just very briefly went over, well, it's the same thing as your PCP tells you. You should like maybe eat healthier, and cholesterol's a little high, and well, but didn't fucking really explain anything to me or really tell me what to do. Didn't recommend supplements, didn't explain why these are your propensities. Well, just sort of like went and just, and what it really became clear is all they do is they're a model that makes money off of selling testosterone supplements to men. That's it. And she spent half the time explaining to me, she was not unethical. She wasn't going to force it, but it became very apparent that that's what they were selling. And I was not interested in getting into that because I know that when I'm healthy and I'm exercising and doing leg, that my T is fine. It falls when I'm really tired, worn down, et cetera, et cetera. They were entirely full of shit. So I paid $1,200 all told to them to include the labs. It's like 100, 110 markers. And then for 1 hour with a very tired doctor who really was just peddling testosterone. And they never contacted me again. Well, that's not true. Nothing. No plan, no write-up, nothing. And then something like 6 months later, the person who had been assigned to me, who had been assigned as my health advisor, emailed and was like, hey, I wanted to check in and see how you were doing. And I emailed back pissed. I was like, frankly, I think you guys are unethical. And I think this is what you're doing. You're basically, you didn't advise me, you didn't give me a health plan, you didn't advise me on what supplements to get, you didn't give me any information that I could use. Really what it became apparent is all you wanted to do is sell a subscription to testosterone. You want to make money off of men just sitting there sending you money every month for testosterone prescription. That's all you were doing, and you need the doctor to sign off on it. You know what he said? Nothing. He was like, well, the labs are, if you had any idea how expensive the labs are, you would understand. Sorry, you're not happy. Still didn't give me anything. Nothing. So they're deeply unethical. So that is also this model. That's this model. And it's the Wild West, and you have to be careful. And I'm not saying their name, not because I give a fuck about them. They're a bunch of assholes. But because I don't know what liability is. Right? I don't know what liability is. I don't want to get sued. I'm not going to, but I'm just going to let that be. Okay. There are some other models that are very good. They're all doing the same thing. But that company was charging something like $3,000 for the genetic test. $2,000 for the genetic test. So I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm already $1,200 in. I can't, like, we spend, in addition to spending like 10, 15 grand a year on health coverage, which does fucking nothing unless you break your leg, is worthless. I can't spend another 4 grand to do this. I'm in for 20 grand in a year just to try to address my health, which is not dire, right? So I didn't do it. So I found so I kept playing through that. Then I found I found another practitioner and another system. And this practitioner was easily less than half. Did 100, has a whole system wired up. has a system through which you get the labs done where they generate a bunch of helpful information, a full workup on this is what this means, this is how this works. Has a genetic test that was like, it was like $300, I think. And then I upload all that information from the genetic test along with all of the autoimmune testing, the regular cholesterol, heart, liver, brain health, all the whole thing, like 150 markers, well over 3 times as much. And so far, I think I'm still under $1,000, or maybe the same as I paid for that other. Now, I know that's expensive, but let me tell you something. Now, this comes to the point, really to the point. That's fucking infuriating. This doctor sent me a complete workup. This is after the lab sent me a complete workup with explanations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages explaining everything significant in my labs, everything significant in my genes, everything significant in my genes, complete with an action plan of these are the most important levers. I understand you have a life and you're not going to just jump and change all of these things. So if you're only going to change 2 or 3 things, make them these. These are the supplements. This doctor, she doesn't take kickbacks from the company. She's just like, these are the supplements that I know where they're from. I know how they're created. I know how they're sourced, and I trust them. Use this entire thing. And I had not even talked to her yet. I had this. Okay, here's the thing. That's absolute insanity about the fucking medical model. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. Now, there are podcasters, influencers, random doctors out there who you've heard them say many times, you know what, if you can afford it, this is a test you should do at least once in your life. And they're sort of saying it gently because it's not out there in the zeitgeist. So now I'm saying it the way it should be said. Are you fucking kidding me? The medical community sits there and acts like they treat you for fucking 40, 50, 60, 80 years of your life, and they never do your genetic test and have no fucking idea what your genetic propensities are? Are you fucking kidding me? This is ridiculous. It's ludicrous that insurance wouldn't want to pay for that. And not sit there and pay for maintenance and pay for cortisol shots for me and maintenance of this and pay for physical therapy and blah, blah, blah. When your genetic, your genotype clearly says this is a huge issue for this person and they're going to need to absolutely not eat these foods and they're going to need this supplement because they're not capable of metabolizing or breaking down and using this vitamin. How the fuck is it that the medical community doesn't fucking want to know that or need to know that? Or that insurance isn't paying for that? Are you fucking out of your mind? What's wrong with you? Are you kidding me? I'm 59 fucking years old. At the age of 59, for like $300, which I could routinely pay out of my own copay, or I have shitty insurance, so it's like, well, you owe $250 plus this prescription, blah, 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 blah. Like routinely pay a couple times a year, and once explained every goddamn health issue I've had for fucking 6 decades. Medical community, what the fuck is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? You're smart people. You actually know this. What the fuck are you doing? Every one of you should be screaming bloody murder that insurance should be covered in doing a genetic test and seeing what actually happens and what people can actually metabolize and what they can't and what they need to metabolize stuff and why they're having, oh, John, why have you had joint pain for fucking 5 decades? Oh, well, there's actually a genetic reason, you dumb motherfuckers. 6 decades. 5 decades of pain and stiffness and sometimes sleeplessness because you stupid motherfuckers don't incorporate this into the fucking medical model. You're an idiot. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, I'm not going to reveal all my personal medical information. Right? I had a huge worry about Alzheimer's. Information comes back. I do not have the gene that predisposes you to Alzheimer's. In fact, I have very robust brain health, all of the genes necessary. However, I am positive. Now, I don't know genetics, so I can't explain it to you, but the doctor explained it to me very well. I have versions of the motherfucker gene, MTHFR, some, whatever, that makes it very difficult for me to metabolize vitamin B12 and some other B vitamins. I've been trying to address memory problems taking large amounts of vitamin B12, but my body has a hard time metabolizing it, and I needed the version, the liposomal version, that's already broken down so that my body can use it. Did a doctor tell me that? Well, it's right fucking here. It's right here. I could have known this at 10. I could have known this at 15 years of age, at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50. I could have known this. Are you kidding me? What the fuck is wrong with you people? Are you kidding? Genetic testing? How the fuck is that not the first thing that even insurance, and everybody knows they don't give a fuck about you. They have actuaries who can predict when you're going to die, and right? They know that once you're at a certain age, if you fall and break your hip, statistics are so reliable, they know you're dead in 5 years. And it's not true for everyone, but it's so reliable that they literally write it into their calculations for how this works. They don't give a shit that they could give you the information so that you're not dead in 5 years. They don't give a shit because they make money off of the fact that you're going to be dead in 5 years. So everyone knows insurance doesn't give a fuck about you, and they don't give a fuck about your health. And they're absolutely directly working against it in many cases when they make money off of you being unhealthy or dying. That's not a problem for them. But even in their own self-interest, the amount of money they would save off of adult onset diabetes, autoimmune issues of 1,000 different kinds, lupus, this, that, all of these autoimmune issues, joint pain, heart attacks that result from heart inflammation, strokes that result from venal inflammation, like all of this shit that insurance probably pours millions, maybe billions of dollars into having to take care of these people, you could fucking eliminate, you dumb motherfuckers, with a test that cost me $300 once. I don't ever have to do it again, once, because it doesn't change. Your genetic makeup doesn't change. Your lab markers might change, but this doesn't change. I mean, this is wild. This is fucking wild. Okay. Guess what else I found out? That the doctor helped me understand. And everything in there, the labs as well as the genetic test, exactly tracked all of my experiences of 6 decades of life and told me, this is why you feel this is why you experience this is why you had all the joint pain and inflammation, this is why you struggle with anxiety and PTSD, blah, 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 all of these, like all of this shit is in there. It doesn't explain that I was abused as a child, right? That's the primary cause. For example, there are some things that don't track. For example, my genetic predisposition is to put on weight. I've never had a problem with putting on weight. Weight comes off from me super easily. Well, that's because I had PTSD for decades. I was just always like, and so that PTSD actually saved me for something that most of the people in my family struggle with, which is not terrible obesity, but some level of weight issues and obesity. So I was raised vegetarian. I'm very attached to carbs, to bread and cheese. You know what I find out now at the age of 59? One gene from my mother, one from my father, make me absolutely at the highest risk for celiacs or gluten intolerance. Does that mean I have celiacs? No, it doesn't. Is that part of me constantly fighting full body inflammation? It could absolutely be a huge part. I'm 59 years old with one $300 test. Any doctor could have said, hey, it seems you don't have this. Go ahead and keep blah, blah. Why don't they know? Because they're not asking any questions. All they know is you complain about something and they're like, here, take this fucking drug and maybe eat differently. That's what the fuck you're paying for. That's all they do. Take this drug and maybe eat differently. Get your exercise. Okay, I understand they're captured, but guys, are you fucking serious? Are you fucking serious? You don't want or need this information? It's wild. I'm not going to go through all of it. There are multiple ways, right? The two variants I have on the motherfucker gene means that my B vitamin methylation system runs slow, and that it's confirmed by elevated homocysteine, which creates some other problems. I was low on omega-3s. Well, I've read the data and gone back and forth on omega-3s for a couple decades. And the data is like, well, it's not clear. Well, but okay, just fucking one reasonable test. And it's like, hey, man, you're low on omega-3s. I do not carry the Alzheimer's risk gene, APOE, E3E3. I have a missing detox enzyme, deleted, GSTT1, plus a reduced capacity in several others, which means that I clear toxins less efficiently. My entire life, I get nauseous and sick very quickly from anything. Anything. It's if a toxic substance, if it's exhaust from a car, if I take too many vitamins on an empty stomach and my body just gets too much of this thing. Alcohol, can't handle much, blah, blah, anything toxic. I don't know. I grew up around a bunch of people like, you fucking pussy. Yeah, I just thought I was a pussy. Right there. Right there. My face is getting red, partially because of the light, but also because my AC is not working. And it's hot. I have difficulty eliminating toxins. And my healthiest years are when I worked out hard 4 to 5 times a week, sweating a lot, drank lots of fluids, never drank. I was just in optimal health. Because some people, their bodies can sort of process toxicity, but I can't. I can't be around dirty air, whatever. It's nothing about me. It's right there. And I've been going to doctors for 59 years, and not fucking one of them knows this. Not one of them knows that I have absolutely the highest risk, one gene from my mother and another risk factor from my father for celiac disease and possibly a severe gluten intolerance. You guys don't know this? How the fuck are you going to help me? How you don't know this? How are you going to help me? How are you going to help me with inflammation? You going to give me a cortisol shot and send me to physical therapy? That's what you're going to do. You're going to tell me, well, you're probably aging, this stuff happens. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about because you don't have the information you need. You're a really smart person who worked really hard. You're a really good person. You went into something you're probably idealistic. I love you. You're a great person, but fuck off. You don't know what you need and you don't even ask for it. How the fuck are you going to help anybody with metabolic processes and many, many, many diseases that you haven't even been hipped to the fact that they are the end of a failure of a metabolic process? I'm an LMFT. I don't even have a PhD in anything, and I fucking know this, and I've known this for at least a decade. How the fuck do you not know it? Homocysteine, elevator for optimal, tied directly to your motherfucker genetics. My genetics say I'm built for strength, exceptional power, genetics, fast recovery. That is true, but I've obsessed over cardio my entire life. Probably not the healthiest thing. It would be better to do strength training, which I didn't do tons of. I still don't. Okay. I've yelled a lot. I've screamed a lot. Then at the end, it's like, here, start with this. You need to eat eggs, tons of choline. I have difficulty in the metabolic process that results in adequate choline. Okay. Hey, doctors, you don't know that. You can't even make suggestions. You can't even help me. You would have looked at my cholesterol and said, maybe don't eat so many eggs. That's what you would have said. Not because you're not smart and not because you're not a good person, but because you don't have the fucking information you need and they don't tell you to get it. What are we doing here? What the fuck are we doing? I don't really like fish, but I need to eat fish. Because my genetics also tell me that I have difficulty converting the omega-3s from plant sources. I was trying to do omega-3s from plant sources. I don't like fish. Was a doctor ever going to tell me that? No, because they don't have the fucking information. A doctor never did the genetic test, which you need once. Now, it doesn't change. Once you know it, you know it. How the fuck are we not using this in medicine your entire life? This is one of the dumbest things I've ever come across. I mean, humans, we're dumb and we have blind spots, but every once in a while you come across something and you're like, seriously? Are you fucking kidding me? There's literally no downside. It's less expensive than just going for a bullshit once a year annual. How the fuck are we not doing this at the beginning of people's lives? You want to pay a nurse to sit there and take a history? Well, what about your mom and dad? And what do they have? And blah, blah. You're sitting there guessing at people's genetic inheritance when you could just fucking do the test and know, and that's it. You know about that person for life. This doctor I'm working with, it took me 2 days and probably a total of 4 hours to fill out all of the history and then do it once, because what's the fucking point? How are you going to address my medical issues when you don't fucking know? Oh, you have our chart. You don't know shit because you didn't do a history in the first chart or the second or then the next year or the next year. You're just building bullshit on top of bullshit on top of bullshit. And going, well, we remember you have a history. You've come in and said before you have this joint thing. And so maybe you have a little bit more of a propensity. Maybe stay away from the night shift. Shut the fuck up, man. Or woman. You don't know what you're talking about. Not because you're not smart, but because you don't have the fucking information. And hey, if you're one of the good doctors, if you're one of the people who understands this and knows and hates it, then go work, then start your own version of that structure where people pay a big upfront cost. They learn everything they need to learn. And then you have AI assisting you. And this doctor uses something called Function Health, which is amazing. The output was amazing. It matched almost 80% what her deep dive and workup, except that they didn't have the genetic information that she had. So that was fucking amazing to see the genetic predisposition and then all of the experiences I'd had my entire life. And I can tell you right now, I have never, ever, not once gone to a doctor's office and had them address any of the fucking information in my labs or here that I just learned that explains my entire life, with the exception of significant developmental trauma and abuse. 6 decades, you crazy people. 6 fucking decades. And in 2 months, 4 hours of extended history taking, finding out the name of the rare autoimmune disease my uncle had, that my grandmother died of sussing together, putting all to something that you only need to do once. And then getting the genetic test, getting significant labs, 160. You don't need to do that every time. Once you do it, yes, you need to track your blood levels. There shouldn't be a doctor guessing based on barely a history and what they have in the charts, which is more barely a history and barely any information, and their assumptions based on assumptions. You go back in and do the blood work and find out if the changes that you're making actually altered the things and responded to the place where you have a genetic lack or an inability to deal with, for example, me, to methylate B vitamins. Or, right, we're waiting to do a test for celiacs because it's like, oh, I have the highest risk possible in a human. You think maybe my lifetime of struggle with inflammation and joint pain might have something to do with that, medical community? You think? And all you needed was this, once. Jesus Christ. What are we doing here? This is so stupid. Are you kidding me? And forget about women's health. I'm a man, and a lot of medical information is biased in favor of lots of studies and blah, 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 and men's health is a little bit more linear than women's health. And like I have multiple conversations with very highly informed, highly intelligent women who have spent their life struggling with autoimmune propensities and this and that and blah, blah, blah. We forget about like PCOS and like all of the shit that happens. The doctors don't have any fucking idea because it's metabolic, because it's metabolic, because it's metabolic, because it's inflammation, it's inflammation, it's inflammation. It is autoimmune, it is autoimmune, it is autoimmune. It is the malady of our time is inflammation, chronic inflammation, autoimmune, and metabolic issues. And all of these things are solvable with this. Jesus. And you could do it now. Okay, not everybody can afford to do what I just did. I'm super lucky that I have a robust practice and my wife has her business, and I can afford. I know lots of people can't. But insurance, you're a fucking idiot that you don't pay for this. You want people paying out every month and blah, 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 and not having to pay back in? Oh, geez, maybe you should pay for people to get a genetic test and a full, like, 150 marker lab workup. Maybe you should pay for that, you idiots. Even though we know you don't give a shit about our health and you don't give a shit about whether we die or not. You give a shit about the money and your ability to lobby Congress and to leverage power over the population. You have a captured population. We legally have to have insurance. I mean, how unethical is that? I'm not even going to address that. Okay, guys, I didn't even tell you the multiple ways that these genetic markers and this lab, it was 150 markers, explains my entire life, and that I can look back, and the only time visiting a medical doctor has ever helped me was for mechanical surgeries, if I've gotten a fungal skin issue before, and the doctor diagnosed it and was like, hey, rub some tea tree oil on it, or, they can give you something more robust. On rare occasion, I've had something, look, if you need antibiotics, doctors prescribe that. But doctors, is this literally what you're reduced to? You prescribe antibiotics. Surgery works when it's appropriate. I mean, imagine how much positive feeling and regard would come back if you had this information and you knew this information about your patients. I'm mad at you, but I'm not mad at you. I mean, historically, we went through the Industrial Revolution, everything became mechanical and scientific and linear and blah, blah, and you guys are a product of that, and things have been evolving, and AI changes everything, and a more holistic view, and we have more information than we did 50 years ago, blah, blah, blah. I understand. The same thing's happening in therapy. Everything was very theoretical. Now it's becoming much more scientific and concrete, and we have much better levers on what's going on, and we also understand that the medical is a big part of what we're seeing in our clients, and we need to work with you guys, blah, 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 all of this shit, like in the big context, yeah. But I find it hard to explain that you guys being the experts in human health didn't know that you needed this once, the genetic test once in a human's life, and then just do it once every 5 years. Do 150, 160 markers. But part of the reason you don't do it is because the issues that come up are not going to be solved by a fucking prescription. That's the issue. And then you get your $500 or $600 for the visit, and you just ship them off, and they go to the pharmacy and they take that, and whether it's placebo or not, well, hopefully they move the fuck on. And that's the outcome that you want. And so that's why I'm fucking calling you on this shit, because a lot of you have slipped into that shit. Because you don't want to have to fucking do the fucking deep dive and the hard work to work with this entire system, which is what this doctor is doing with me. It's like, boom. She did this entire workup, sent it to me. Then we had an hour together, and then I'm supposed to respond to her with responses about certain markers and things in there and directions I want to go. And then there's going to be another follow-up, because you have to work with the fucking metabolic system, which is complex, which is related to childhood trauma. It's related to what people eat. It's related to where they live. It's related to possible environmental insults like molds and toxins and blah, blah, blah. By the way, I had no toxins, zero, undetectable. Right? Your dentist needs this. Every time I go to the dentist, I have this filling that looks like the old kind of lead or with some kind of whatever, and they're worried about it. They're like, look, we need to take it out. Labs, 0 undetectable levels of any heavy metal or toxin in my blood. Okay, Mr. Dentist, how come you don't fucking know that? How come you're not looping this into your business to know that? Well, because you make money off of telling me to take it out and then drill it and cap it and blah, blah, and all of a sudden you're $1,500, $2,000 fucking dollars in because there's no motivation for you to actually do what's healthy. You know what? Fuck all you people. Because you've been doing this for decades and you fucking know the difference. Because you're smart and you're trained and you know the fucking difference. And I do not believe that you don't know the difference. I don't believe that you didn't know the difference. What I believe is it became a model by which you made a lot of money and sent your kids to nice schools and you took care of them the way they needed to be cared for and you didn't give a shit if the rest of us died of what we had. That's really what it comes down to. So fuck you. You can't explain this away. You can't explain this away. The fact that I could spend $300 and then get a bunch of lab tests for like 150 markers that explains my entire life. You cannot fucking explain that away. You can't. You can't explain it away. You have been severely negligent, and the only reason it's worked is because you make a lot of money and because the insurance company has captured you and contains you and directs you, and because Big Pharma allows you to send people off to pay money for a drug, and then they go home and they forget about it and they just deal with whatever their life is, and then they die of it later or they come back and then you make more money. That's why this has not become incorporated, something this fucking easy and this fucking obvious and this inexpensive has not been incorporated because you are making money and you're comfortable and your kids are healthy. So fuck you. I don't buy the bullshit anymore. Folks, this is happening. I mean, this is happening. And this model is going to destroy the traditional medical model. It's going to collapse and it's going to shrink down to mechanical surgeries, prescribing, hey, if you have a fungal infection or you have corns on your feet or like look, we need medicine. I'm very grateful to the surgeons who have corrected really difficult things for me, helped me not have to lay in bed for 4 months straight because they couldn't put a cast on me, and if I was not going to get pins in my femur, I was going to have to lay in bed until it healed adequately, blah, blah, blah. Right? You need to understand that this is happening. Your shit is going to collapse. So make the move now. Go start your own version of this. Or bail and go work for a version of this. Be careful, it's the Wild West out there. And for us, the consumers of this, you got to understand. If you can't afford it, I get it. Like my 20s, 30s, some of my 40s, I probably couldn't have afforded it. And I also worry about people knowing what my genetic and inheritance is. Like, I don't know, I have some paranoid whatever. So I had some resistance. But the fact that the medical model, the fact that I could spend 1 year under 6 decades going to doctors and having them, none of them have any fucking idea about this and have nothing more than my vague report of I'm experiencing this, and them give me a drug, put me on an unreasonable level of aspirin or NSAID or what the fuck ever to address the inflammation, or to make some vague suggestion, stay away from the nightshades. That's, it's probably a good idea. Eat less steak, maybe. Yeah. That is a serious indictment. So folks who are consumers, I understand if you can't afford it, but this is what's going to happen. You're spending thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars across your life. And I understand, right? I know people who have a medical condition that's a known medical condition and it's chronic, and the medicine for it is very expensive, so insurance is paying out for that, and it helps them stay healthy. Like, I understand that there are other things. I understand. But this is too fucking obvious and egregious to not tell you to your face, fuck you. This isn't you just didn't know. You fucking knew. And you allowed people to suffer. I spent 5 years, once this got really bad, I spent 5 years struggling with sleep. It ached and burned so badly, but there was no point in doing anything because I'd already been through the physical therapy and the cortisol shot and, well, maybe, people with joint problems, maybe this or that. Like, I don't think any of those doctors even ever did a rheumatoid arthritis test. Maybe they did. If you did, I apologize. But one shot, right? Remember, it was a nutritionist who solved that problem for me in half the money that we pay you to have some vague fucking answer when you know you don't know, and you know that there are causes, and you know that you could figure out the causes.